Okay.
All right, this is an interview with Richard Brennan, Days Inn, Hicksville, New York, 19th of November 2003, approximately 10:30 a.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Richard Francis Brennan. What else did you want?
Date of birth, place of birth, please.
March 16th, 1940, Bronx, New York.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
Enlisted.
Enlisted. You were. Okay. When did you enlist? What was your time of enlistment? Of service?
February 28th, 1959, I enlisted. What else did you want?
To when did you end your time in service?
March 28th, 7th, like that, 1961.
Okay. Why did you select the Army?
Because none of the other services would take me.
Mm-hmm.
I was 6'4", weighed 150 pounds. Too skinny. They didn't want me. So.
Okay. Where did you go for your? Where were you inducted? Where did you go for your?
I went to Fort Dix.
Fort Dix.
February through, I don't know, whatever it is, April, March, something like that.
So that was your basic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I went to what they call today AIT.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds. I was my MOS was 44210. I was a welder blacksmith. Let's see, I think that, I want to say 16 weeks. I'm not sure, but I want to say 16 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I went to Guam in the South Pacific, the 809th Engineers, Combat Engineers.
Mm-hmm.
I landed there September. Yeah, something like that, September. And I stayed through until September, October, November, December, January, February, March, June. And then we went TDY to Korea. We put in 2 missile sites in Korea, one in Yeoju and the other one, I want to say Osan. I'm not absolutely positive, but I want to say Osan.
Could you tell us maybe a little detail of how you put these sites in, and what kind of work you did on them?
I was a welder, and what we did was, in Korea, we took the top of a mountain off, and we put the control tower for the missile site up on top of the mountain, and at the base of the mountain was the launch pad. I never did see them actually go in.
Mm-hmm. Now, were these in a silo, or?
I have no idea.
No, okay.
No idea. No, couldn't tell you really.
Mm-hmm.
All we did was prepare the ground for the missiles, and then whoever took over after that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We left there. It was starting to get cold, so I figured somewhere around November we left Korea. In the interim, the whole battalion was transferred to Okinawa. So we left Korea, we went straight to Okinawa. I stayed there from, I don't know, sometime in November, I think, until the 28th of December, mm-hmm. where I was shipped home. I had completed my 18 months or whatever it is. Oh, another thing too, on Guam, we took a B-17 airstrip and lengthened it and made it big enough for B-52s. I forgot that.
Was it one of those metal airstrips, or was it?
No, concrete. Concrete. And believe it or not, as we were digging up the ground to extend the airfield, we uncovered all kinds of stuff from the Japanese. Mm-hmm. Yeah, old airplanes and tank parts, ammunition, all kinds of stuff. We dug up. While I was there, we took 2 Japanese soldiers out of the jungle.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, at home I have a newspaper clipping my mother had sent me
So this is in
1959.
59.
59. The latter part. It could have been early 60, you know, in there. Because that's a long time ago. I just can't pinpoint it.
Yeah.
One was a sergeant and the other one was a private.
Now, how did they come into you?
No. We had to go in and get them.
Did they offer any resistance, or?
It wouldn't have made any difference if it did.
Yeah.
The weapons were so badly rusted that they wouldn't have fired anyway. They were naked. They lived in a breadfruit bush.
Huh.
They were caught stealing chickens. That's how they got caught. They weren't about to give up. But you know the sad part about it, I really felt bad for them. They were so emaciated. You know, they were skinny, you know. And when they got home, the Japanese government, from what I understand, did nothing for them. You know, terrible. Yeah, really, there's no need for that. You know. But anyway. Sorry, I skipped it around.
No, that's okay. That's kind of interesting.
Just-
I think we were just talking about something like that yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what was it? I just got finished reading that book, Flags of the Fathers.
oh yes, yeah.
I just got finished reading that. It's the Suribachi, Mount Suribachi. 1970 something, 80 something. The last Japanese soldier come over.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so you were discharged when you went
No,
back?
no.
Okay. What did you do back in the States?
No, I came home and I got a 30-day leave, and I was ordered to go to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And my MOS at the time was, like I said, 44210, and they decided they were going to have an experimental project, and they needed every welder they could get their hands on. So I got snatched along with, I don't know, 50, 60 other guys or whatever it was. And they sent us back to welding school in Aberdeen to learn how to weld pipe. 8 and 16-inch pipe. And after we graduated from that, they sent us up to Fisher's Island. It's in the Long Island Sound up here. What we did was we welded 8 miles of 16 and 8 miles of 8-inch. It was to see whether or not offshore unloading of fuel could be accomplished by whatever method they were coming up with. So I stayed there. It was all through the summer. And the funny part about it is I got married while I was up there. So.
What kind of welding were you doing? Stick welding or?
Yes, well, in those days, the Army didn't have Heliarc or MiG or TIG or any of those things. They just had stick and gas. So I was a stick man. Of course, we did cutting and we brazed and silver solder and all that stuff. But yeah, it was interesting. It was very interesting. Then Then we left there after the mission was completed. Went
How
back-
was it a successful mission? Did you?
I have no
do you
idea
think
whether
that
it was or
you
not.
Never were let in on.
No, well, I was only a
Yeah.
spec 4. The hell, they're not going to tell me anything.
Yeah.
I just did my job, and that was the end of it. I didn't care. I went back to Fort Belvoir. A couple of weeks later, I went back on a Sunday night. My bags were all packed for me. They told me to report to Tobyhanna, Pennsylvania immediately. So my friend and I, we both got orders to go. We drove up to Tobyhanna. And we pulled in there actually, to be honest with you, it was 7:55 in the morning when we pulled in there. And it was all trucks lined up. And I said, I'm so-and-so. This guy said, I'm so-and-so. Yeah, okay, throw your stuff in the back of that truck and let's go. Well, where are we going? France. We're going to where? France. Not me, I'm not going to France. What are you kidding? No notice, no nothing, you're just telling me I'm going? No, that don't work. So I went to the chaplain, myself and the other guy. And we got I think it was 2 weeks, emergency leave. That was when Kennedy had his Berlin build-up, the wall thing.
Right.
And I wound up over there in Saumur, France, from September, October of, it's getting bad now, 60, has to be 61. Through till April of 62. Oh yeah, by the way, it's not 61 when I got out, it was 62. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Were you in during the Cuban Missile Crisis?
No, no, no. Thank you for that. Enough is enough.
Now, what did you do in France? Just a build-up, or
Just
did
sat
you-
there. But I got lucky. My wife's cousin was a master sergeant who was stationed in Saumur. So everybody lived in tents except me. I lived in a private house. So that's one good thing that came out of it anyway. But we had no work to do. Absolutely nothing. Total boredom. It was incredible.
Did you get to sightsee?
Oh
at
yeah,
all?
sure. You could take off all the time you want, just as long as you told them where you were going. So I went to tours, and that's where St. Martin came from. And I went to Paris and Normandy, and little towns, really nothing exciting. That's just about that. And when I came home, we took a train from Saumur to Bremerhaven, Germany, which took about 2 days from my recollection. We got on a troop transport and came home. And I was discharged right on the dock. My father was dying in the hospital. So they took me out. They just had all the papers lined up on the dock. I signed my life away. That's just about it. For active, anyway.
Now you went into the reserves.
18 years later.
So there was an 18-year gap.
Yep. 1980, I went into the reserves. My friend was the first sergeant. He kept breaking my horns. Come on, come on, come on. We have a ball. We have a good time. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
So just because of his influence, you?
Well, the funny part about it is I went into the Navy. My son says to me, I want to join the Navy. You want to come down to the recruiter with me? And I said, yeah, sure, let's go. So I went down to the recruiter with him. So he's filling out his papers, and he turns to me and he says, I'll do you 4 years of active if you do 4 years of reserves. I said, you got it.
Now, how old were you at this time then?
Oh, God.
Must have been about 40 or so.
40.
I got out at 21, 30.
It must have been around 1980.
Yeah,
So you're about 40 years old.
1980, yeah. And I was put up here in Huntington. They had a Naval Reserve Station up there. And I was hooked into an LST. USS, what was it now? Harlan County was the name of the LST. And I was a hull tech. That's welding and, that kind of thing. And I kept taking promotional exams and they wouldn't promote me. I kept getting what they call PNA, which is passed, not advanced. And I kept getting PNA, PNA, PNA. And I said, listen, this is not going anywhere,
No, you went in as an E4.
I was an E4 because I got lucky. They didn't take any of my rank away from me. Usually they drop you one. I didn't get dropped. And I kept after them. And I said, listen, you guys keep playing around. I'm not in here for, I like a little rank, They finally, I had the impression I was too old. I was the oldest one in the bunch. I was older than the commander. So I said, all right, I'm getting out of here. So I went to my friend, the first sergeant. Of course, he was annoyed at me for even going into the Navy in the first place. But we finagled it and we got in. And I went to the 623rd Transportation Company, which was tractor trailers, 5,000-gallon fuel tankers. And I learned how to drive them. And then 6 months later, I made E5. And progression, time and grade and whatever, I made E6. And then I went to the Persian Gulf. And I was there from November through April. I was on the initial invasion into Iraq with the 24th Infantry Division.
Okay, could you tell us about that?
Yeah, We lived 450 miles out in the desert, in a base camp, tents, you know, the usual stuff. We ran missions from there. There was a National Guard outfit up above us, I'd say about 2 miles above us, with they were quartermaster. They had bladders, fuel bladders, and it was our job to keep them full. And from what I understand, they had a 1 million gallon capacity, and we filled them. And then from time to time, we'd have to draw from them to bring to someplace else. And in the meantime, we were drawing it. Another platoon in our company was refilling them. And then when we didn't have fuel to move, we moved anything from picnic tables to $10 million operating rooms. I pulled that one. 60-foot box trailer, complete operating room. Everything in there. CAT scans, everything. It was amazing. I really got enjoyment out of that.
You must have been about 50 years old at that
51.
time. 51.
I was grandpa. I was sergeant of the guard one night, down in an area just outside of Harlan, and I was had roving patrol that night in a Hummer, and we come around the back end of the perimeter. First sergeant standing out in the middle of the street in his underwear, doing this. Hey. So I said to my driver, "Look at this knucklehead, will you?" He hands me a piece of paper. I still have it at home. Boy, 9 pounds something ounces, length such and such, good health. That's all it was on there. That was my grandson, and that was Thanksgiving night. Yeah, 51. But I wasn't the oldest. No, guys a lot older than me. We had one guy over 60.
Really?
Yeah. But you know, in our particular position, we weren't required to run from foxhole to foxhole and carry all kinds of weight. We drove trucks. So it really didn't require, of course, if it push comes to shove, you know, we're all 11 Bravo, you know, we're all, but thank God it never came to that. Yeah.
How long were you over there for?
Well, November to April. What's that? November, December, January, February, March, 6 months. Maybe closer to 7. I'm not quite sure the date we got over there. I know one thing, it was hot as hell. So
Have you had any problems since then with any kind of illnesses like you hear about?
physically?
Gulf War
No.
vets?
No.
No.
I went for this for a while. You know, because you see things that you don't normally see. You know, it sort of bothers you. I was up on Highway 8. You know, that wasn't very pretty. You know, it's not something a man in my age has. You know, that we've just about finished with our life. You know, these young kids, they can deal with that stuff a lot better, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I think I did all right. I didn't come home a raving lunatic, but I had issues. Well, we took care of them, thanks to the vet center down on Montauk Highway. They have a thing down there. It's run by the Veterans Administration, and you go in there and they talk to you, and then they analyze what your situation is, and then I was there for 5 years, going, you know, once a week. Very nice people, very warm people. It worked, thank God.
Now, your son that you went in with, he went active. Did he?
Aircraft carrier.
He ended up.
He was an electrician on an aircraft carrier. He was in Beirut when they blew up the barracks there, and they killed all those guys. Yeah, he was there then. He was on the Nassau. It's a LHA helicopter carrier, and he had, of course, helicopters and Harrier jets, the vertical takeoff jets, and there was a full complement of Marines inside the. It's an amazing ship, absolutely amazing. They got a full, I don't know how the Marines work, a full battalion, 2,000 men. I don't know what that encompasses, whether it's a regiment or a battalion or whatever. The whole back of that ship opens up, and they got landing craft lined up on hooks or whatever it is, and they just fill the water in and they float the hooks and the Marines get into it. It's an amazing ship, absolutely amazing.
Now, did your son make a career of it,
No.
or did he go into the reserves?
No.
Did his 4 years and got out?
Yeah, he had enough. But now he's an electrician for the Long Island Railroad.
Well,
Does very well.
Good job.
Well, you see, the electrical system on a carrier is the same as it is on the railroad. It's all DC, you know. So they grabbed him immediately, and I thank God for that.
So do you have any regrets about going in
Not
the
that
reserves at all? Or?
much. Not that much.
What rank were you when you retired?
E-7. I was up for E-8, but I had a heart attack, and they wouldn't let me.
Now, when did you retire out of the reserves?
2000. Yeah, 2000. 23 years and change. It was a total of the active and the reserve.
How do you think your time in the service affected your life?
Well, it didn't do much for my social life, that's for sure. It seems as though every time we had a party scheduled or a barbecue or what have you, it was always that weekend when you had to be away. So she's kind of happy about that, now that it's all over. Yeah. As a matter of fact, this museum I'm starting is, you guys are quite, you've helped me out tremendously. And we just bought our building, and it's a tremendous big building, and the basement is vacant. There's nothing there. So we're fixing up the basement. It's a huge basement, and we're fixing it all up. We're gonna, put all lighting in there and fix it all up, and then I'm gonna get mannequins for the uniforms and everything, and set them all up. But it's gonna take a while because we can't touch the building too much because it's under historical,
Historical
whatever.
site.
Right.
Yeah, so we can't do too much. So what we can do, we're doing.
Well, one last question. You're active in veterans organizations?
Not really, just the American Legion, the
American
VFW.
Legion. Okay.
I don't do too much with the VFW.
Do you ever stay in contact with anyone
Yeah.
that you were in service with?
Matter of fact, my old company commander, I have a key to his house over here. They moved him down to Virginia, and I'm keeping an eye on his house for him.
Was that from active duty or?
No, the reserve.
Reserves.
Yeah. That reserve thing. That Gulf thing was quite an experience. I mean, 11 o'clock at night. I have a little story for you. I don't know whether you got time for it.
Sure.
At 11 o'clock at night, they called us into the orderly room, and they said, "All right, we've been there for months, but now they said we're going tonight." Oh, really? Okay. Get your people together. Make sure your equipment's good. Blah blah blah. You know how it works. So we got all set up. Now we were involved in a 600 truck convoy. We were direct combat support for the 24th Infantry Division, plus the French and the British. And we got called out, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, on the radio in the truck, go. So we started going. We started heading out. Now, prior to going over there, I had made up a lot of tapes, little music tapes, and I had a machine gun cartridge box. I kept my tapes in there, and I kept my batteries, the usual stuff,
Sure.
a little Walkman, And I've got the radio on, and we're tooling along, getting ready to go. And somewhere in the interim of all of this activity, the military radio says, "We're there." That was my commander at the time. And when he said that, I'm listening to, on my radio, "You'll Never Walk Alone." A guy by the name of Johnny Maestro, he's singing, and the song he was singing is "You'll Never Walk Alone." Well, the hackles went right up on the back of my neck, because it was I don't know what it was, but I'd like to believe that being told that everything's going to be okay, you know. And we went in, and it was rough for a while. We ran through a minefield one night, and one of the trucks got blown up. It was funny. I had MLRSs on the back of a flatbed. They're multi-launch rocket systems, you know, the missiles. So when they stopped us all, when the truck blew up, they stopped us all. Don't move, anybody move. And it was nighttime. Couldn't see a hand in front of your face. And they said, all right, we're going to stay here until the sun comes up, till we see where we are. Okay, so my partner and I, we just went to sleep. In the morning we get up, guy knocks on the door. My platoon sergeant, at the time I was a squad leader. He knocks on the door and he says, come here, I want to show you something. So I get out of the truck, and I look down, and then I stepped out and I walked back. In between the rear duals on the trailer, there's a pin sticking out of the ground. And he says, you see that? And I just got, oh man. I said, well, what happened? Obviously nothing. Because if it was active or it was a good one, you wouldn't be standing here right now. It was a dud.
Wow.
The pin was right between, these trailers had 2, 4, 6 on one side and 6 on the other. There was the big long trailer. And there's this pin. So they didn't have any forklifts big enough to pick up the back end of the trailer. So I says, well, what am I going to do? I can't sit here. And they didn't have anybody to dig it out of there because there was no room to dig it out in the first place. So I went back to the truck and I told my assistant, get out of the truck and go way over there someplace. What am I going to do? I drove over it. I figured the other wheels didn't bother it. Why is those last 2 going to bother it? And it didn't, thank God. Half the countryside would have went with all those missiles. And we got up onto Highway 8, and I've never seen carnage like that in my life. I mean, there was bodies all over the place. And then when we got the word, we got to move.
Were they American also,
No,
or was it
no,
Iraqi?
No, they're all Iraqi. And they told us we got to move because the 24th is pushing. And we got to keep up with them. So we got up on the highway and started running down the highway. And we had to drive this way. You keep running over the bodies, and half the time you missed. And then we got parked. They staged us, and they started unloading. And then we got mortared one night. Iraqis started laying mortars in. I don't know where the hell they were coming from. And then Apaches went over and they took care of them. And then there was some T-55s or 72s, and the Warthogs took care of them. So it was pretty much war one-sided. I did find 3 Iraqi soldiers actually. They were wounded, very seriously wounded. And I called medevac and they came down and got them. And we ran out of food and water because we were supplying the Iraqi soldiers with food and water. They were dying, these people. They were starving. No water, no nothing. I went in with 4 cases of water and 4 cases of MREs on the back of the truck. And within a couple hours it was all gone. We kept handing it out to them, they kept going. I mean, they're human beings, come on, you know, you just, I mean, as much as you think you hate them, which you really don't.
Yeah.
And half of them didn't even have uniforms. They sneakers and odd pants and an odd shirt. And I mean, they're terrible. You know, I mean, nothing to be afraid of, really. And they come up to you like this, you know, with their hands in the air. How you gonna? You can't shoot anybody like that. Yeah. It's not right. And then after we got the ceasefire, then we had to start bringing back everything we brought in. So we brought ammunition back to a place called KKMC, which is King Khalid Military City. It's a Saudi air base. And drop off the the ammunition there, and then run over to the fuel dump and hook into your fuel tanker and bring it out into the desert and hook into these huge pipelines. They're hoses actually, and Chinooks would come down 5, 6 at a time, and we'd fuel them hot. The engine's running, and then a couple of Cobras come in and we fuel them, and then they had to be rearmed because they were pulling security, and then we just kept back and forth. I was in and out of Iraq 11 times. And then finally they just said, okay, everything's in. We got to stop breaking down camp. You know. Would you believe it? We had plywood floorboards in the tents. We had to put armed guards on the plywood floorboards. The Saudi people, they never saw plywood before, I guess. They wanted that wood in the worst way, and they were going to take it. Mm-hmm. You know, they were all starting to crowd around the base camp, you know. So we had to go out there with loaded weapons and told them, listen, you want the wood? Wait till we leave, then you can have it. We ain't about to get into a situation with these people. But it all worked out in the end. They waited until we left, and then they went in, they took everything, they cleaned the place out. There was nothing left. Mm-hmm. Then we went down to Kobar. And we were in Kobar Towers for, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. That was the very building that the Air Force guys got killed in.
Oh, yeah.
When they blew up the buildings, we were in those buildings. And we got on a Pan Am plane and came home. That's just about it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.